Recognized member for Carleton Valley.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. You know, I listened to this debate and we really haven't come very far from the dirty 30s when forest workers used to get killed and they would prop them up beside a stump and tell the rest of the crew, just work on, just carry on, everything's fine, it's just the cost of doing business. And you know, workers had to fight over the years. In fact, part of the reason there is a union movement in British Columbia was because workers were getting killed on the job over and over and over again, and employers weren't acting on behalf of those workers and their families. And so they had to fight. They had to form unions to prevent that kind of behavior where it was okay to prop a friend up against a stump. And I talked to the old-timers that actually had that happen to them. And I've been through the experience myself in the forest industry, Honourable Speaker. I remember prior to the Westray bill what happened when I was the safety chairman at the Youbou mill. 550 people worked there, and young Patrick Krechmire, 18 years old, he might as well have been left a huge, big mousetrap. And it was the incompetence and negligence of that company. We had actually written orders. There was a new tray system in the veneer plant. We had written orders and said, make sure you put in lockout procedures and train the workers on the new procedures. You know what they did? Instead, they sped up production. They got the job done adequately enough to be able to crank up production on Monday morning, and they slapped it together, and that 18-year-old man went in there, and all he did was touch a little piece of the size of a pencil, and down came 2.5 tons and crushed the life out of that young man. And there, right there was an example of absolute negligence. And then I went through it again just a few years ago with Ted Gramlich. We had the forest industry in British Columbia deciding they needed to save a few dollars. You know, we've got sympathetic administration, and that's what I'm hearing over on the other side of the table. It's sympathetic administration playing their violin music of it's all okay. We're sure the employers are taking care of things. We've got WorkSafe BC. Oh, we happened to cut a whole bunch of their regulation, but we got WorkSafe BC on the job. They just happen to fail to do any of the things necessary to be able to hold people accountable in British Columbia. It is totally unacceptable to working people to see the behavior that goes on, the lack of concern for, and I'm talking negligence, Honourable Speaker. We're not asking, like there are safe employers. I've seen them myself, but I've also seen this when the Westray bill came in. You know what happened? I saw a manager of a sawmill who had the audacity at one time to go down and tell his crew, safety isn't number one, production is number one, and that'll pay for number two, which is safety. He actually said that to the crew, one of the mills right here on Vancouver Island. But he had a whole new attitude when he was told by his CEO, you could go to jail. There's new legislation. There's a new sheriff in town. Well, guess what? We found out the new sheriff is a toothless wonder, and in British Columbia, we haven't had a single charge of anybody in British Columbia. And it's worse than that. The penalty paid in BC's role on average in 2012 for a death was less than $22,000, Honourable Speaker. In a report by WorkSafe BC, out of 149 worker deaths accepted for compensation payments in 2012, 6 prompted fines for a total of less than $129,000. Honourable Speaker, when I think of all of the people that I have seen die, and Ted Gramlich, that faller, imagine a faller being sent up to an area to fall trees for heli logging, but he was above the fog, and when the tree kicked back and crushed him, and he was laying there bleeding, his leg crushed beyond belief, and he was bleeding, and that man probably would have lived if the contractor would have had a proper safety plan. No safety plan. They hadn't even thought about the possibility that this man could get hurt and that then you would need a helicopter to get him out of there. No plan. We need this kind of action. We need real action in British Columbia, not a sympathetic administration like we've got over there.